Hello, and thanks for sticking around until the end today. Maria has introduced me, and well, there's a bottomless well of information on the complex topics of AI and generative AI. And I had in fact prepared a few observations on general trends in the industry and so on, but I'm going to skip those in the interest of brevity and the time available, and to allow the panel members to have a discussion here as far as we can. I'll cut to the chase then. So as far as cultural heritage goes, artificial intelligence promises a further major acceleration in knowledge of what heritage is, how it can be accessed, produced and disseminated from what has already been brought about by the digital revolution. But my question is whether we are currently doing in the sector isn't likely several steps behind the state of the art of the technology, and if so, whether this matters. And if it does matter, shouldn't we be trying to become part of a massive investment in the development of European artificial intelligence? Because European AI is falling behind states and other parts of the world. Is this an important matter for us, or are we focused mainly on the immediate user-driven implications of artificial intelligence? I think the key question, actually. So in this context then, today we will be talking about the 6 major Horizon Europe projects funded under the 2021 call for preserving and enhancing cultural heritage with advanced digital technologies. Just before we begin with that, I'd like to mention briefly a couple of projects which have been going on in the framework of the Europeana environment, one of which was covered very effectively by Camilla this morning. It's called AI for Culture. I'm not going to go over all that again. It's coming up with toolkits and data sets and so on, which will be very helpful, I think, for those in the sector in the near future. Just to give a flavour of what it's doing at the moment, though, I wanted to just mention the topics of some of the workshops it's come up with. It's an initial set of 5 workshops. They're really around, to a certain extent, aspects of multilingualism, like text recognition in scanned documents, subtitle generation and validation, and machine translation for cultural heritage metadata, and around things like semantic linking in textual descriptions and image analysis. So this is the level at which at the moment we're pitching this advocacy, if you like, on behalf of AI, the support for AI in the cultural heritage sector. And that, I think, may relate to what I just said about where we are in relation to advanced technology. I'm sure there's going to be more in future on that. The other one I wanted to mention was a project which hasn't been mentioned so far today, called D-Bias. It is relevant to one of the topics that we were talking about this morning. D-Bias aims to promote a more inclusive and respectful approach to the description of digital collections and the telling of stories and histories of minoritized communities. So it's developing an AI-powered tool to automatically detect problematic terms in cultural heritage metadata and to provide information about their background. So it's going to use vocabularies that combine offensive language with contextual information and suggestions for appropriate terms. So this is a practical measure, if you like, to try to address one aspect of the question of bias that we discussed this morning. So there's other stuff going on, but that's not why we're here today. We're here today to talk about the existing project. So now I'd like to ask the panel to address a couple of topics here. First, if you can keep your inputs, if you can, down to a couple of minutes, we'll get through, on each topic, we'll get through maybe towards the end. The first question I'd like to ask you to address is how far and to what extent does artificial intelligence feature in your particular project? And what are some of the successes or challenges you'd like to highlight in terms of AI and its application and what you're trying to do? I think we've seen this pretty clearly from 1 or 2 of the presentations, but maybe less so from others. So let's, I'm going to grab a chair and sit down here a bit. That's okay, no, please. Oh, you got it, okay. Let's go in reverse alphabetical order, maybe to start with. Shift first, George, do you want to? Oh, project, not a surname.
Can you hear me? Okay. So thank you, Rob. It is the quintessence of all, I think all the projects that participate in this panel, because all the projects are based on the advancements of artificial intelligence. And I think that now AI constitutes a fundamental role in achieving each project's objective. And the good thing is that these advancements are very rapid and very radical. And I would like to convey my experience about SIFT. When we started writing up the proposal, and I was one of the core contributors, we talked about AI, which is able to understand text and descriptions and can transform it in a manner that probably was not possible at the time that we wrote the proposal. We pretty much talked about something similar to GPT. And when we started SIFT, hopefully it was get granted, GPT was there. So we have all the necessary instruments to proceed and implement what we promised. And a big consideration, considering what Mariano presented in his presentation, was which is the paths that, how we can frame the paths that we are going to follow in order to use correctly the AI potential, because we need to consider that there is bias, that we might go to different directions. So the answer to that, at least in our project, was to involve our users from the first time. So on each step, we validated the results, and we were pretty much sure that we were in the correct direction. So,
let's go on now to Premier. Do alphabetical, reverse alphabetical. I'll try and guide this.
Well, I have to say, our project regarding accessibility and inclusion, I have to say, it's kind of a two-sided coin. So on one side, for example, when we want to enhance the semantic enrichment, this means we are adding information by means with artificial intelligence, and this means also that we are gaining more accessibility. For example, if we can automatically subtitle the performances, that will lead to non-hearing people and hard-hearing people to better follow the artwork. If we automatically detect the performers, and that will be for blind people to know who is talking, for example, and know the character. So it's quite amazing how all this semantic enrichment and adding layers of information and this multimodal analysis leads to an enhancement in accessibility. Regarding inclusion, we have to say, for example, we are emphasizing also the usage of non-binary avatars. Also, that also challenges the classical, let's say, representation of gender in performance. And regarding all these extended reality, also the fact that we can deploy the performance in newly created virtual scenarios, virtual theaters, of course, leads to a better inclusion of people that perhaps, for several reasons, being health, economic, or whatever, cannot access performance. So I have to say, I think perhaps 80% of the actions have a positive impact to accessibility, which is I would say, accessibility by design also, as a colleague said before. Thanks.
That's brilliant, thank you, Mark. You addressed both of the first two topics there together, so that's great. But we're sticking now right to AI and accessibility. We'll come on to next, but that's good to look at. Okay, what's next? MuseIT, more?
So in MuseIT, we use AI for two things. So as you've seen, we have a co-creation remote platform, which basically allows musicians or people who want to do music from a large distance to co-create remotely without any latency. And AI is being used to turn physiological sensors, for instance, a brain EEG data, so like electrical activity of the brain, into musical expressions and to personalize it. So this is the first, let's say, output that we have that uses AI. And then the other one, just like Shift and a lot of projects in the cluster, is multimodality. Of course, this is obviously linked to the question of accessibility, because the main goal of MuseIT is to widen, not sure how to pronounce it, but the access of cultural assets in general to people with disabilities. And multisensory and multimodality is really useful for that, especially people with cognitive and physical disabilities. And you asked about a success, right? So I think, well, I'm on the dissemination and policy part of the project, so one of the success that we have, but even that concerns actually all parts of the project, was the participatory approach. In a sense that just like all the projects presented here, we are creating these interactive technologies with the target groups that we want to serve, let's say. So people with disabilities in a very large scope, all people and cultural heritage institutions. So far we had dozens of participatory workshops all across Europe to understand first the needs and also try to be very concrete and ask the people how cultural heritage institutions, how would they like to make their assets, their experiences, their not just cultural heritage, creative and artistic as well institutions, how do you want to be more accessible? And on the other side, people with disability, T's or T, what kind of challenges are you encountering when you're trying to interact with these specific cultural assets? So yes, the feedback and the engagement that we had so far during these workshops and during different engagement that we had is one of the successes that I would highlight.
Talk about the use of AI in your project and maybe some of the challenges you've encountered.
Okay, so I already showed...
Sorry, is that another hand mic in it? No? Sorry.
No. So I showed what we did on AI. I think it can be very interesting because the idea of PLC was during COVID, because people didn't have access to museum or whatever. So how do you bring outside of the museum still the culture and the art and so on? But at the same time, we wanted also to incorporate it to the museum. So it's like how to say, it's at the same time virtual but also in the reality. So it's this two type of approach. But so I will say the main comment will be about the precision. So if you are constructing images or painting, you need, as you have a lot of experts in the field, you need to have the best reconstruction possible. So which data to use to, at the end, have the best reconstruction possible. And one of the, I will say one of the drawbacks was that some museums didn't want us to use their data to train AI. So if you don't have data, you cannot do anything. So it's also one of the things. So how do we involve the museum to say that AI will not steal your job, but more help you to reconstruct the color of the sculpture or the painting or whatever, or to maybe sometimes you have defects in photos. How will you use AI to help you in this, but not to take your job? And I think we need the experts because you cannot know, for example, me, I can see the photo, but an expert would really see the details in what can be reconstructed. So it was one of, I would say, the negative part. The positive part is, of course, that now that we have this type of tool, we can go outside of a museum, you can be at home, look at your phone, and then it's not the same experience. I don't know who say this. Yes, you. I mean, it's like you look at the menu or you eat in the place, but I mean, at least you can look at the menu if you don't have enough money and then go eat and look. Yes, so that's it.
Okay, so Nicholas, yes, that's the first challenge we've heard about it.
Yes, so the main way that AI features in the Memorize project is essentially through services that are natural language processing pipelines. So what these NLP services do, they process Dutch, German, and English resources, and these services that they then tag these resources with metadata so that we can interlink the different resources in a knowledge graph. And then, of course, when we make available the resources through the knowledge graph, they become more discoverable and findable. Yes, so one of the, let's say like one of the successes we've had is to deploy a named entity recognition service, which locate and classify named entities in text material. So for example, things like locations and people, and then if we can locate and classify people and locations in several resources, we can interconnect them. So with respect to one of the challenges we've had, it has had to do with acquiring the data. So for example, you saw with the 3D models, to obtain these 3D models, we actually have to go to the memorial sites, we have to use photogrammetry to generate them. With respect to the data we've had, so like the text materials, the text-based data, we've had to get in touch with institutions and go through legal processes to actually obtain the rights to these diaries and testimonies. And then of course with that comes also challenges related to storage, because for some of the data we only allowed to train these natural language processing NLP models using some of the data, and only some of the data we also allowed only to publish snippets of, let's say. So there's different restrictions related to the different data sets, and so this is like one of the main challenges in the project.
Thank you very much. Christina.
In Mementos, we don't use AI for accessibility. We have the AI services specifically for 3D reconstruction for cultural heritage objects. And what we have is 3 services. One is the style transfer, which what it does is that alters the look and feel of an image by keeping the content intact. The second is the super resolution that enhances the quality of an image. And the third is the 3D reconstruction that creates a model from a video. I have mentioned this before. Now, if someone combines these 3, can create a 3D reconstruction cultural heritage objects with detailed textures. And after that, they can create models with different visual feeling, visual styles. Like they can make a 3D model and they can make it to be like rusty or dusty or with snow or in a war zone, and they can put everything, whatever they think of. And they can even change the visual style to be any artistic style of any game or an application. And the other, the final AI service that we have is the adaptive game experience, which was not originally planned, and for this reason is under development. What we use is an AI agent, but the aim is to support the appropriate level, with the appropriate level of hints and help to support the player during the gameplay when they need it. And we do that by taking as input the real-time action of the player in the game environment. And the goal case is to have game environments that are adjustable to the needs of the player. Depending on the input that you can have an output that matches the target that you have.
I wanted to pick up that point actually about considering how quickly and fast AI is developing since these proposals were written and project funded. To what extent you've had to adjust your goals, change things, and how easy it's been to do that given the normal constraints of European Commission funding. Would anybody like to speak to that? I mean, Georgie.
Yes, so as I said before, when we wrote the proposal, GPT didn't exist, and then we found it there, and this make things very easy for us because we could advance our target objectives to more mature solutions, and that was good. But on the other hand, you know, the big thing with GPT is hallucination, so it's a big problem. So we had to be very careful, and as I said before, we always trust our end users, humans, to validate the results. So this is the way that we chose in order to make things that are usable, useful, and not make any kind of harm.
Anyway, this change is manageable.
Yes, yes.
Nicholas, did you want to say something about this?
Yeah, so I don't think Memorize had to change much because the whole, let's say, one of the main ideas is that, yes, you have AI involved in this like curation process, but you also have the human involved. So for example, you saw this screenshot of the data curation and annotation tool. So even though you have AI services that are able to tag and interlink the different resources, you still have a human in the loop. And that's one of the focuses of Memorize, having that human in there, like the expert user, to actually validate the tagging. So in that sense, I don't think the project has had to change that much. Of course, some of our, let's say, translation approaches have probably gotten better by this.
So things are getting easier.
Yeah, yes.
Would anyone else like to pick up that point, or shall we move on?
Perhaps in our case, which is pretty specific, I think performance arts, traditionally the motion capture was done with infrared sensors and cameras. This was a pretty complex setup and very expensive too. So while the project was prepared and we started working on it, let's say motion capture dresses evolved. So they now have sensors. They are sensorized. So this is, I mean, we can better train AI with lots of more data. So this is kind of improving also the results and the quality of the results, thanks to, in this case, the improvement of this motion capture technologies involved. And I wanted also to mention that all the tools in Premiere will be open source. They will be available in the, let's say, final web results-oriented website. So all the community will have access not only to the ecosystem, but also the tools will be accessible individually. So if you want to, for example, have one specific tool regarding the archive use case that we see, you will be also able to use it. And of course, some of the partners will be also adding value-added services to empower and to boost the usage among the performing arts community.
Maybe we can move on now to the second topic, which is accessibility. And what I wanted to explore here is, I mean, all of the projects I think have some kind of focus on accessibility. They're all doing, that's what the call was about. We're all doing something about inclusion. Are we doing anything innovative here? Are we changing the notion of what accessibility means by what we do with technology? Would anyone like to pick up on that topic? Benedict, maybe.
Well, probably yes. Actually, you see, the question with museums and museum exhibition is always that it's always dependent on the understanding of the exhibition. Is how much knowledge the visitor brings in his or her hand into the exhibition. So if there is little, then we have to talk a lot. If there is a lot, then we have to talk a little. And it's always a kind of a balance which is very hard to reach. And therefore, in this respect, perhaps, so that means to open up from those groups who are impaired, and although they are just a hyper-social society, especially in the elderly, we're always focusing on, say, the young adults from 30 to 40, 45 years, and which are less impaired visually and hearing and audio. And so if we open up from them to the general public, then it may help us. So that's why, for example, we are trying, which was on video, we are using this true fine, say, thing. So we use medical surgical instruments via a movement to make it more easily understandable how they are used, how they were used. We can talk a lot about it, or we can show it. If you show us a static painting or etching, that's not the same as you show a short clip of a video. And that's the way how we're trying to do it. And that's used, I mean, it's useful for the general public. So probably it could help if we have to sort of find it out.
More, do you want to check the number? I know you have on accessibility.
So, in the Memorize project, one of the other interfaces we're also creating is a tool for creating stories based on the interlinked data in the knowledge graph. So this tool allows, let's say, educators to tailor stories revolving around H&P data or heritage related to Nazi persecution. And this tool, and of course, it utilizes the underlying knowledge graph, making, let's say, making it easier to create these visual stories using all of the different resources like diary entries, letters, historical photographs, and so on.
But it strikes me the wisdom, sorry, George, please.
Quick answer. To continue from where Benedict stopped, I don't think that accessibility is changing because the needs are very specific for people who need to access technology. We can improve the means for providing accessibility because the technologies always evolve, but on the other hand, there are new technologies coming to the forefront, so we need to contemplate new ways to address the same accessibility needs with the new technologies.
So it's not a paradigm shift here, it's just okay, thank you very much. I want to leave time for audience Q&A here, but maybe we can just touch on the third topic, which is what next? So we hear about all kinds of possibilities with AI, it becomes more autonomous, has more agency, can make decisions on its own, and that's a kind of frontier development in industrial research, in our opinion. Do you have any sort of sense of where we're going with this, what is next, and how we're going to deal with it, what issues might come up here? Christina.
To continue what George said, and what other speakers said today, we talked about a lot how we will help small museums in digital transition, because it is difficult for them to do it alone, and we still have work to do on this. And I believe we don't need only to have AI-based applications that are easy to use, accessible, to have super-duper interfaces for enhanced work and user experiences. But we also can use AI to make the process itself, the digital transition process, to be well integrated in the everyday work life, and also to be able to make the transition not only for the current technologies that we already know, but to ensure that the digital transition will be ensured even for the technologies that we don't know yet. So I think that AI can help in finding this process. How do we do it? The methodology to continue doing this digital transition, starting now from the readiness level. Okay, we will make a lot of processes with training, upskilling in the working life, but later we will need a universal methodology that will ensure that the process will be done no matter the technology.
Okay, interesting.
Can I say something? No, because what I'm about to say is just maybe a little bit more general, but I would say from the standpoint of like working with cultural heritage institutions, museums, next is awareness and making sure that no one is left out of this process, in the sense that you mentioned, Christina, the small museums. If I take the case of the example of France, because so we're based in Paris, of course, big museums like Le Louvre or Orsay that have human capacity to be involved in European initiatives, in cooperation initiatives, or even national things going on, national ventures, where AI is at the center. Of course, you will see them, their data, their collections included. But the reality is that, and it was highlighted in this morning's presentations, is that the vast majority of museums, and even like in developed Western countries, do not necessarily have a means of like getting AI tools or AI-related technologies, and also speaking from the side of, because my structure is also an aggregator for Europeana, as you know, or as you might not know. So there is a kind of like sometimes a defiance towards AI, and as you said, because there is a lot of like, not a lot, but there are dangers regarding transparencies, copyrights, respect, etc. So how do we work on like leveraging the tools, the Commission's tools, national tools, all the tools that we can create, and even inventing new ones, so that we can target also small actors. I mentioned museums, but also like within the framework of MuseIT, we had ideation workshops and participatory events where we had even like associations, members of the civil society, educators working with children with disabilities, etc. Well, a whole large panel of actors interested in using tools, sharing data, just getting informed and spreading information. But how, to me, this is like, how do we structure all the tools that have been, and the regulation that have, everything that have been presented today, to make sure that they are not left out.
So I am coming from a startup, so maybe I have another. It's money, I would say. So AI, I think it will help reduce the cost of a lot of things we're doing. So basically, for example, our company, we did we did a show in Orange. It's I don't know. You are? Okay, so we did actually a show, and the cost will reduce about, I don't know, 70% of the cost, because we use AI to plan the show and so on. So maybe I think in the future it will help also in the financial aspect of things. So, but at the moment I believe that we still need a lot of expertise. But maybe in the future, based on this expertise, a lot of things will change and cost involved, I think.
Thank you. Anyone else? Otherwise, I think I'm going to open up this for questions from the floor. Is that okay, Maria? Shall I?
Yes. I think we have time for just a couple of questions. Quite late, yes? Okay. So, anyone? Yes, there, lady over there. Give me a second.
Hello, my name's Sophie. I'm from the Federal Ministry for Arts and Culture in Austria. And my question to all of you actually would be if all these tools and projects that you're working on, I haven't noticed if anyone mentioned, and what I'm wondering is, are they open source? Whatever you're developing, all these amazing tools that you've talked about, are they open source? Can they be reused afterwards? Or is there a plan to make them open source if they're not yet?
Who wants to pick up on that?
Yes, so at least in the Memorize project, there is a plan to make all of our interfaces, all our like backend infrastructure, all the services we develop, it is planned to make them all available open source. I think we already have like a GitHub repository. There's just no code there yet, but we will get there at some point. And the idea is to publish everything there. So it is, yeah, openly available.
The idea is actually very similar with us and the shifts, and that we would like to make it open access to everyone. But all procedures are slightly different because we have some private companies involved in the project, and we are pilot projects. So as soon as it is developed enough, then it could be accessible for the general public. But that's the principle. That's true.
I think I mentioned that in the case of Premiere, but at the extent that we are using also open source algorithms. So one of the nice things of open source is when if you use open source tools to build new tools, you have to follow the same license. So it's most our case, so all the tools will be accessible, and as I mentioned, they will be accessible individually, and you will have also a chance to have like a full framework of the virtual theater test. So and tested environment also, where some use cases are there to be shown. And we'll have also expert services linked to that, and also very important, methodology. Not only the tool, but also the document explaining all the methodology will be also there to make it easy to adapt it.
Thank you all for the very inspiring cases. I was wondering, Camilla this morning in her presentation mentioned the volunteers, and the survey showed that organizations with volunteers didn't use AI. I know Westerbork, Nicholas, is with a lot of volunteers one organization. What is your experience in the project with engaging with volunteers? Maybe to you specifically, but also other initiatives.
So I'm working on the personally, I haven't engaged much with volunteers at all because I'm working more on the backend infrastructure. So I'm behind the screen, like sitting in a dark room, coding away. But I know we have a patron in the project, and I guess you could say he's a volunteer as well, right? He's contributing with his knowledge and his wisdom, so to say. And of course that's really important in safeguarding these very personal resources like diary entries, letters, and things like that. So I think it's definitely important engaging with volunteers, not just, let's say, eyewitnesses themselves, but also, let's say, people that have different perspectives on how this type of data should be used and can be used.
Maybe one last question, if anyone in this room. We're okay? I think we're all ready for drinks. I will give this microphone to Claudia.
Again, not a question, just an announcement. So tomorrow the final lecture will be about the device project. A lady will present it online, Marie-Véronique Leroy from the French Ministry of Culture. She couldn't make it in person, but we will have this extensive lecture about it. She will also mention the project, so we'll hear about it more. Thank you.
Thanks. Are you going to sum this up? Okay. Well, if you don't have anything to say, on behalf of the cluster of the second cluster of the digital cultural heritage, we would very much like to thank the organizers and the Hungarian Presidency, rotating Presidency of the European Council, for giving us the opportunity to come here and present our projects and also meet each other, because we are in touch, but it's very rarely that we get to meet each other and actually exchange views in person. So thank you very much for this opportunity. We're very, very grateful. Thank you. And yes, we want to thank our interpreters. You did an amazing job. It was a very long day. Thank you very much for also sharing with us, even though we need to be running for the day. Thank you.
Okay, just 2 sentences. So I would like to thank you for everybody, for the wonderful presentations. As we mentioned, we started from the theory and we are in the practice now. I think we could learn a lot of useful and very, very important things. So thank you very much for this wonderful day. And we haven't finished, so we are going to continue tomorrow. The morning session is going to be started in the National Library, and in the afternoon we are going to the Hungarian National Museum. So take a rest, have a good evening, and see you tomorrow morning. Thank you very much once again.